do a little presentation on that.
So why don't we begin then with the appointment of the trustee, and we'll.
I'll text Barry. You might not realize that we're moving along these
So,
days.
quite so.
Do you approve the minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the approval of the minutes.
Oh,
Okay,
that's right.
all right.
We're doing the minutes?
Thank you. Let's do the approval of the minutes, of which we have two dates, May 16th and May 24th.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes for May 16th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, and any discussion?
Who seconded? Thank you.
So hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None? Okay, so then we'll move on to the May 24th.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes for May 24th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
I can second that.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, unanimous approval. And Barry is still not here, so let's move on to appointment of trustee. And I think I want to kick this one off. I don't want to go to a motion right away. I want to have a little bit of discussion before we go to a motion. And I think I want to kick it off just by saying we are extremely fortunate because we had 4 really outstanding candidates for the trustee position. And, I think the decision has been, I think we've all struggled a little bit with making the decision, and I myself am so appreciative of Lois and those who aren't present who put in their application for the trustee role, and to be able to choose among these just outstanding candidates is quite a privilege. And I know a couple of the candidates are already very engaged in our township, but I'm hoping that all 4 of the candidates, whether they end up being the trustee or not, will become active volunteers for the township. So I wanted to just start by thanking Lois. You're present, so I'm thanking you in person, but those that aren't present as well for bringing forward their application. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the criteria that we're going to use before we start talking about the individual candidates, because I think that'll help the public understand the choice that we make. And I put some example criteria here, and these were kind of derived from the questions that we asked in person. Prior experience serving on boards, experience with local government, service record with Dexter Township, special skills, fills a gap on our board, and availability for other boards and intention to run again. Those exactly parallel the questions that we asked the interview candidates. But I wanted to first ask whether you guys agree with those criteria or whether you thought anything was missing. And I'm looking at page 27 of the package. And thank you, Sam, she's not here, but for putting these page numbers on the packet, I think is just great. It's going to help us find our way through the package a little bit more.
Oh, there they
easily.
are. Okay, because I was
Yeah.
digging a minute ago.
Yeah. Are we comfortable with these criteria? And what's absent from here, I'm going to say, is political party, which is something we did discuss when we were interviewing supervisor candidates. But I did not ask that question, and so I didn't include it on the list.
I appreciate that you didn't ask it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's appropriate.
I agree.
Same for the Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you think is missing? Anything that's on the list that you don't think is important?
No, that's it.
No, it makes sense to me.
Anything on the list that you think should be a higher priority than, or should be a highest priority or a lower priority?
I think one of the highest priorities myself is filling the gaps, special skills, and fill gaps on our board. of things we need. I mean, we came in green, 30 months later, there's still gaps that we need to fill, so skills, gaps, skills. And just to get support and help.
I actually agree with Karen, and I also think a large benefit of the individual or the candidate that is running is someone who volunteers in our community and attends our meetings. That is so important. If you want to run to serve on this board, attending these meetings are beneficial, and it just shows that you want to be here and you want to be involved and you want to learn what we're doing.
And we don't have attends our meeting on the list, but we can certainly add it. So we have service record with Dexter Township. But we could add attends our meeting to the list.
And I just want to say, in terms of attending meetings, I think that means not necessarily just BOT meetings or these meetings, but community. The community, we already kind of have that, the community engagement, like already involved in meetings,
Yeah.
in committees, et cetera. Yeah, which a number of our candidates are.
Yeah, yeah.
I just, honestly, I wish we could just add seats to the board.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of like the more the merrier kind of person.
Seriously.
And everyone is so qualified in some way, different ways, but
I think I said that. I'm like, can we
yeah,
have
can we
8?
just extend the board?
Yeah.
For me, experience with local government is important, and I mean, that's also one of our criteria, but I would like to have another member of the board that has some real professional experience in local government. I think that would help me as I'm, learning the supervisor role, so I think that means that prior experience serving on boards and availability for other boards and intention to run again are the lower priorities based on the discussion just now. And then experience with local government, service record with Dexter Township, including attending meetings, and special skills or fills a gap on our board are the higher priorities. Okay. So with that in mind, how do we want to proceed? Shall I ask for a motion to appoint one of the candidates?
Or do we take a vote, like last time, one of the critiques of us was that we didn't take a vote on each
Yeah.
person. So
And
it's almost like we should,
discuss. each
not
person.
even to discuss, but just put a name out there and each vote.
Oh, okay.
That was one of their
But that doesn't
critiques.
make sense to me because
critique.
when you propose the first one, if you appoint that one, then you're not going to appoint the other four.
Correct.
I did not agree with that, but personally, because you're not going to put every candidate, there's no way to put every candidate to the vote unless the last candidate is the one unless you happen to decline all the first ones.
Yeah, I know.
It was a strange process
Yeah.
to wait for a motion and have silence.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing.
That was the
And
weird
I
part.
don't know how to work around that, but,
Yeah.
well, I will make a motion. I will move to appoint Gretchen Driscoll as our trustee. And I'll just say that, and then there can be discussion, right?
After a second, yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, so let me hear what everyone's thoughts are on that.
Do you want to start since you made the motion?
Well, I'm torn. Like I said, I'm torn, and honestly, I think I'm torn between Lois and Gretchen, honestly, and got to meet with both of them and just have deep respect for both of you. And I do think, though, that Gretchen, with her vast experience as the mayor of Saline and other involvement in politics, I think she's got connections. When Karen said filling in gaps of places where we may be missing some experience or missing some things, I feel like Gretchen could really contribute to that. And it's important to me that she wants to run again and can. right? However, it's still a hard choice for me.
Before we move on to you, Maris, can you speak a little bit about why Regina and Jeffrey were not on your list? And I ask that because they weren't present.
Yeah.
And I want to make it, and I want to feel assured that it wasn't their absence
No.
I want to understand, and I want the public to
Right.
understand why they weren't on your list.
For me, it was not about their absence at all. I feel like other candidates provided a background and experience that I thought were more, just had more experience than Regina, and also have served already on, like, Gretchen is on the farmland board, and Lois has been doing recycling and more.
Local roads and, yeah.
Pardon?
Elections.
That
Yeah.
and elections, exactly. And so already that kind of service really speaks to me.
Okay.
So it had nothing to do with them not being here, it just had to do with like experience in the township. And then Gretchen with exceptional experience in, public administration and politics.
I mean, I'm not really sure what more I'm going to add to, because I'm kind of echoing what Laura has to say. I have so much respect for Lois, and thank you so much for everything you contribute to this community. I mean, it's amazing. So I just want to thank you so much. But I'm just going to echo what Laura said. But we also, we did interview the other two candidates, even though for the supervisor position.
right.
So we, in all fairness, we did get to see them and hear them live, here with us. So, to me, it had nothing to do with their absence and everything to do with experience.
Yeah, I agree. I felt lucky that we got to meet them, and I
Yeah.
didn't feel any deficit of knowledge about any of them.
No.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Okay, so I do have two candidates that I am definitely fond of, that I would love to have the opportunity to serve on this board. One is Gretchen, the other is Lois, and I absolutely do favor Lois. But when it comes to Gretchen, she absolutely has the vast experience. She does serve on the farmland board. Jeffrey and Regina, although I believe they are qualified as well, what is important to me is that people show up for meetings. I was new once upon a time, and what did I do? I came to meetings, and I learned from the previous board. I learned what they were doing. I learned what townships were about. I started to understand Robert's rules and the minutes. Things that I never paid attention to before. So it does concern me when individuals run for office and they don't attempt to come to our meetings. Also, serving on committees is very important to me, which both Gretchen and Lois do. But now I don't know can you tell me, Supervisor, what the stipulation was when the questions and answers were sent out? Did you ask for the candidates to fill them out and send them back, or just they could, okay.
I invited Regina and Jeffrey to prepare written answers because Jeffrey knew he wasn't going to be available to attend because he's got a family emergency that's keeping him out of town, and he's out of town
Okay.
for that reason now. Regina had an emergency that arose that day, and so I will say that Jeffrey had more time to prepare his written answers because her emergency came up the same day. So we probably all noticed that Regina's answers were a little bit shorter than Jeffrey's, and I think that's because she was dealing with her emergency and working hard to get a written response to us in the midst of this emergency on a single day.
Which I totally appreciate. I thought that the candidates were asked to have them answered. So I did give Gretchen a call on Friday. Friday morning and give her the opportunity to answer them as well in her own words. My minutes are my minutes. I'm writing them very quickly, and they're coming from, I'm interpreting them in my mindset. So I did give her the opportunity to just a paragraph on each of those questions, but she was too busy. She was leaving town, and she had a Zoom. So, although I think she would be fantastic, it does concern me with her time constraints as well. But, and that's why I ask you, because I did then contact Lois, because I already had from you, thank you, you sent me the other two candidates, Gretchen and Joffrey's answers. I did reach out to Lois because I thought that was sent to them, asking them, and Lois did have hers prepared. So that to me, just the preparedness and just, it's my feeling.
Karen?
I think both are great candidates. I'm sorry I missed the live interview last week. I just couldn't make it at a conflict. But I do side with Laura, and I guess Maris towards Gretchen. I think her experience is kind of like getting Karen for the supervisor. It's like we bring all these talents to us, and it's like she's just got an immense amount of talent. And I know I have personally, outside of the township, we are starting a lake association where I live. And Gretchen moved on the lake last year, and she jumped right in. And there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's just, here's a project, boom, we go. And I'm all for that for this board. I think we can always use those extra hands. And I just think that experience is going to help us. I know she's out of town right now because of a scheduled vacation, because she's not going to the lake board either. But it's just a schedule. Some things are just conflicts you can't change. But yeah, I go after the experience.
Okay. Well, I don't have much to add to what everybody else said, but I do feel like a service record with Dexter Township was important to me, so that was a real differentiation between Lois and Gretchen versus the other two candidates. I do hope they get involved. I think they're great. I would like to see them begin to be involved here and maybe run for trustee, in 18 months. But for right now, they have not been involved, and so it felt a little like starting as a trustee was aiming a little high. And I also was really torn between Lois and Gretchen. but I do come down on, as I think the three of you, and maybe not Michelle, but we'll see how the vote rolls out, but partly because Gretchen is available to run again, which was one of our criteria, and then also because I do think she can help me, because she was the mayor, and I'm hoping I can get some help
Plus her
from her.
contacts, she's got
yeah.
to be able to network. And
Yeah.
she moved in, when did she move in last year? Did she move into the township or the year before? I forget when she bought her house.
She said last
She
year.
jumped in immediately. I mean, she jumps into community, boom.
So with that in mind, I would say, I want to say that there's 5 of us present, but we need 3.
Here,
Okay.
Robert's rules says the majority of the membership. So that's 4 of the 7 have to vote in favor.
So we have
So
our,
I would say it's 3 of 5 tonight, unless, so Janice, with Robert's rules, absolutely, there's Robert's rules, but there's also Open Meetings Act requirements, and where a board doesn't have board rules, I think the common practice is majority. So a majority of you would be a quorum tonight, and then a majority of you can make a decision unless there's a statute providing otherwise. In this case, the statute regarding appointment does not require any higher threshold. So I think 3 tonight is enough for the vote.
okay, and I will go with the legal advice rather than the recording secretary advice. And I know that Robert's Rules is a best practice, but
Absolutely.
not binding.
No.
And so we'll go with the statutory interpretation. So with that in mind, I'm going to do a roll call vote, and I'm going to start with those who did not put the motion forward. So I will start with you, Michelle Stamoulis.
Yes.
Yes.
Karen Nolte.
Yes.
Maris Metz.
Yes.
Laura Sanders.
Yes.
Karen Sickinga, yes. Okay, so now we will, and again, Lois, I mean, I think you could hear I think we were all, particularly when you talked to me about your experiences as a woman in a male-dominated field, I mean, I think we were all just, wow, we all want to know you and hear all about your experiences and spend more time with you, and so, and for Regina and Jeffrey who aren't here, we are so happy to welcome new people. We have vacancies on boards we cannot fill, and I do hope to hear from you, or I may be reaching out to you. I'm speaking to out into the ether, but we have vacancies that we really need to fill, and I would like to see those two really becoming actively engaged in the township, and I'm grateful to all of those people who came forward. And with that, let us go back now to the farmland and open space action items, of which we have two. The first is the approval of the bylaws, and the second is the funding request. So Barry, do you want to step forward?
Can you tell us what page it's on?
So this is page 16.
Page
16. 16. Thank you for seeing that page.
We added a lot more to it, so it's that it'll stretch.
This one doesn't have anymore.
No,
It died?
yeah,
It seemed like it was a.
yeah, even with new batteries, it shut off, so,
Like so.
like so, now, the green light is on, so you should
It is.
Thank you.
Good evening. You have two items, recommendations from the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board before you this evening. The first of those is a set of bylaws. These are modeled on the ones that are in use in Webster Township, but all of the local township programs have something very similar to these. In Ordinance 37, Section 6 describes the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board and lists a number of things that apply to that. For example, it's a 7-member board. They have to be residents of the township. You have to have a representative of the township board, 2-year terms, and so forth. Part 9 of Section 6 says that the Preservation Board may develop bylaws and standing rules that further define the functional and procedural aspects of its duties. And that's what has been crafted and recommended to you from the Farmland Board, the Preservation Board. So it takes a lot of the things that are in the ordinance and then also just some basic stuff that comes out of Open Meetings Act or Robert's Rules. For example, attendance. If you miss 3 consecutive meetings without informing the chair in advance, then you could be replaced. And notices about meetings that occur at least 48 hours in advance. And some stuff about open meetings and posting of meetings, how to hold special meetings, going into closed sessions, which we do every time that we meet. So it's just putting all that stuff into one document that can serve as a touchstone for the Preservation Board to refer to.
Why don't we move, why don't you talk about the next
The
item?
appraisal also?
And then,
Oh,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking
It should be separate.
Okay, we can do them separately.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do this one.
Okay, so then do I hear a motion to approve the bylaws?
I'll move to approve the bylaws as presented. Well, not presented, because I do have a question, so I'll just,
Well, just,
I'll
okay.
second the motion, so we can discuss.
Okay, so any questions then about the bylaws?
I just, when you were talking about attendance, Barry, I did notice in the bylaws that it says 3 consecutive meetings without informing the chair. I would think that should be even with informing the chair. Just because, I mean, that's giving somebody that opportunity to just not show up. You know what I mean? And I think attendance is really important. And
Agreed.
so I think I would replace that even with information. So if you're missing more than 3 without,
Just
talking to the
strike it.
chair, I think that's I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or at
And
least,
I think that goes for every board, not
Yeah,
just, I'm not picking on the.
So this would be 3
It-
consecutive meetings, comma, the chair shall advise the supervisor. So just cut
Yeah.
out from without.
Yeah, 3.
And it's on
Attendance.
page 19, right? That's the page number.
Oh,
I read
18.
that too. I went,
Yep.
ooh, when I read that too.
Okay.
I didn't think about changing it, but
So,
There's an ooh factor.
okay.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, oh, I get a get out of jail free card.
So you're proposing to strike you just said with 3 consecutive absences
Yeah.
may be removed. Yeah. And it doesn't require removal, it just permits removal.
Right.
And so it can be at the discretion of the board if
Right.
there's some major
Correct.
emergency or something. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments or questions?
I just wanted to say that even though we haven't passed this yet as a board, we used this in forming the farmland and open space board. So, you know, the 7-member, we use these protocols.
Okay,
So they're kind of they're going.
Yeah.
great.
So I
Yes.
guess
I think it
that's
just makes more
thank you.
serious.
That's another question I have. So are these the laws, or this will take effect today?
Yes.
So the individuals that are currently serving will be on for 2 years, and then the representative on the board will additional year.
Some of them are 1-year appointments and some are 2 years, so that they're staggered, so that not everybody is up at one time. So there's like 3 that are 1 year, I can't remember. It's either
3 that are 1
3
year
that are
and
1-year
3 that are
appointments
2
and 4
years.
that are 2-year.
And the board rep is 1 year always.
The board rep is 1 year and gets re-decided each year.
And then if somebody decides that they want to be reappointed, it'll be for a 2-year term going forward. It's just that initial
But this will be
appointment.
starting now. And the only reason I ask is because,
Is it starting now or starting at the effective, retroactive to the date they were
I
appointed?
think it should be
Exactly.
retroactive to when we start.
just because there may be
January.
another board member that wants an opportunity to be
That's
involved too.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was January, and I do think it should be
Because I know
retroactive. I
you
know.
did state that, and I appreciated that with
Yeah,
last year.
I know. There's other people that are interested.
So I
So
think,
it's just-
I think we can agree to make it retroactive to the date of their appointment without necessarily updating the bylaws, because this is really this is a one-time thing that's happening. So if we all just agree that it's retroactive, we won't amend the bylaws. Any other questions?
Amend the motion?
No,
Amend the motion that it's retroactive to approve the
No.
bylaws?
no, I think we're just going to agree to it. We're not going to take a motion. Do we?
I'm not understanding.
There's a motion on the floor from Laura, seconded by,
To approve the bylaws.
to approve the bylaws.
From Maris.
Motion on the
Morris,
floor.
motion from Maris.
Motion from me, seconded by Laura. Yep.
Maris,
Maris
seconded.
made it, Laura, and it was just to approve the bylaws. Do you want to make it to approve the bylaws retroactive?
Well, first I want to hear whether anyone has any other comments.
Oh, okay.
And then we're going to amend the motion because there's multiple amendments to the motion already on the table, right?
Okay.
So, or amendments to the bylaws, so,
Nothing from me.
yeah, okay. So then we've discussed 2 potential decisions. One is we're going to delete the with notice of the chair. That's very clear. I was suggesting that we didn't necessarily need to say that it was retroactive in the bylaws, that we could just agree without a decision of the board. Alex, do we need to have a motion to make it retroactive, or can we just approve the bylaws with that mind?
Why do you feel like we need to make this retroactive?
Well, we don't, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I don't think we need to make it retroactive. I think Michelle just asked a clarifying question as to whether the terms for
Doesn't it say in the bylaws, though, that some of them are initially appointed for 1 year?
yeah.
But we appointed them in January before the board voted on this.
Yeah.
We appointed them for the FOSS
Yeah.
committee, or a board, in January. So Michelle's question is does this start in January, or does this start now?
Does this reset the start date of the board appointments?
I don't think this would restart
No,
the set date.
yeah,
It's just the
yeah,
bylaw.
Right.
yeah. So I don't think,
Yeah, I don't think we have to do anything retroactively. I think
Okay.
it's pretty consistent.
yeah,
So in January, we'll revisit who on the board is going
Yeah.
to be on the FOSS board.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
So 1 year.
yeah.
Yep.
So we have only one amendment requested to the bylaws,
Which is the strike.
which is the striking of the notice of the board. So would you like to amend your motion to,
Me?
was,
Yeah,
oh, did you
Maris
make
made the
the?
motion.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I will second the amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Ahead of it.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the bylaws. What is this called now? The FOSB, striking the word without in attendance under section 3, number 3.
Or do you want to strike the whole phrase? Because if you.
Well, I mean, if it just says, if any member of the Preservation Board misses 3 consecutive meetings and without, well, yeah. I
You would
guess-
either need to replace it with the word with
Yeah.
or strike the whole phrase. Yeah.
Yep, okay,
I would say through meeting.
yep,
Yeah.
So it goes meetings, comma, the chair shall advise.
yes,
Yeah.
that's good, striking that whole sentence.
Yeah. Laura, do you support?
I support that.
Okay. So I'm going to take a voice vote on this since there was a lot of discussion. And I will start with you guys again, since you didn't make the motion. So Michelle Stambolelli,
Yes.
Karen Nolte,
Yes.
Mara Smets.
Yes.
Laura Sanders.
Yes.
And myself, Karen Sickinga, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let us move on to the appraisal.
Yes. So this is of one of the properties that was nominated to our program from the mailing that we did earlier this year. And it was at my suggestion that an appraisal be commissioned, but the Preservation Board supported that. The property does have a low preliminary score. We've had some discussion about this, but I would argue that that's not necessarily reflective of the quality or the importance of the property. For example, there are no points scored for this property, or really for any property that we're looking at right now, for leveraging funds from other sources and for the landowner discounting the appraised value. Oftentimes people say, I might do that, but if I don't know what the appraised value is, I'm not sure that I want to do that. So that's one of the benefits of getting an appraisal, is to figure out what that is and approach them. So the maximum number of points for leveraging and discount is 28. Now, I don't know if these people would go that high, but there's still an opportunity for a substantial increase in the points. As well as, I visited the site last week with the Washtenaw County Parks Natural Area Technical Advisory Committee, to which I had forwarded the application. This is the folks that make recommendations to the Parks and Recreation Commission on where to spend the percentage, which is 57% of the countywide millage, on natural area properties. And they had a very large turnout for that. Turns out that they know the landowners, many of them do, and we're very impressed by the site. I haven't seen their report yet, but I think it's also quite possible that they found rare species on the property, which is another one of our criteria that could score an additional 5 points on the property. But overall, they were very positive about it, and I think there's a very good chance that they will contribute funds when asked sometime later on this year. The property does have limited access, which is part of the reason why it didn't score very well. One of our criteria is how much road frontage does the property have as a reflection of its development potential. But I think that the upside of that is that I think the appraised value and the purchase price could be much lower as a result of that. So we could knock off a really good project for a very low cost. It is part of a larger natural feature complex. It has high-quality woods and wetlands, not only on this property, but extending all the way north quite some distance, and could serve as a keystone property for conserving that entire natural features complex out there. And I would say that the landowners are very dedicated to seeing this happen. They've been on the property for quite a long time, I think over 30 years, if I remember correctly. So we just thought that this was something that was worthwhile to pursue for a relatively small expenditure, to see if we can come to an agreement on being able to purchase an easement on this property.
So if I understand, tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. So you put this one forward for 2 reasons mainly. One is that because it is that the development rights are probably quite low cost, which means it can be, the purchase price would be very low.
Correct.
So it's a good use of township dollars, because we can purchase the development rights for a fairly large tract at a very low cost, and then having done so, it can be a keystone for a larger complex of natural areas that could be conserved. So I did consult with our attorneys today about how much latitude ordinance 37 gives us to depart from the rubric, because this is the lower scoring one, and it sounds like for cost factor, there is flexibility in the ordinance to factor in cost in a way that isn't folded into the rubric, but there's flexibility, there's language around that flexibility in the ordinance. Can you guys speak a little bit, or tell me a little bit more about that?
That's an apt
Yeah.
summary. So the ordinance sets out, this rubric, this kind of formula, which is fairly strict, but then does include three kind of caveats. And I think the first one is the one that's applicable here, which states that the Preservation Board may negotiate for a lower price and/or seek outside funding for the purchase of development rights on any parcel offered. So this allows the Farmland Board to make a recommendation to kind of deviate from that strict rubric, which lays out, these very specific measurable factors, provides a little bit more discretion for the Farmland Board. So if the board feels that that is something that's applicable here, then that's an appropriate use of the Farmland Board's discretion. And I'd also just note that at this stage, we're just looking at an appraisal, so you'll be authorizing, the funds necessary for an appraisal. If the Farmland Board ultimately recommends purchase of the development rights, it'll be back before you to make that final decision. So this is not the end of the board's involvement in this process.
I would just add to Supervisor that he mentioned it's a keystone property.
Yeah.
And we take that also means another element in this caveat, flexibility regarding potentially leveraging it to have, more acreage. And so there does seem to be justification in the ordinance for this.
Yep. So I had raised the question, just so the public understand this, of whether the Farmland Board should consider amending the rubric if the rubric is not in fact working to select the highest priority items. But it sounds like the Ordinance 37 provides for flexibility when other criteria are met, such as the examples that the attorneys put forward. So I'm satisfied that we don't need to change the rubric.
Good.
The only thing I would ask is that if you're going to use those caveats, then you just make it clear in the initial request to the board. So help us understand, if you're going to bring to us a low priority property, help us understand why the board is making that recommendation.
Why the divergence from
I think there should be a distinction between low priority and low score.
Low scoring is what I should correct myself there. So I mean, why is a low scoring property a high priority? Help us understand why a low scoring, and even more perhaps technical, but maybe even more important, is help us understand how this complies with Ordinance 37.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to approve something that's out of compliance with our ordinance. And then the other thing I would ask is to give us a map. So David gave us this map, so when just so we know where it is, I don't even know if this is the right map.
That's
but,
fine.
yeah.
We do treat these applications as confidential, so if you want to deal with those things without disclosing it to the public, that would be fine.
So you treat the actual subject property as confidential, so we can't know the property or...
You guys can, certainly. We just don't want the public to know.
Okay.
We go into closed session to discuss, and we give the property a number.
Okay.
Does that have anything to do with maps?
Locations, yeah.
The Preservation Board receives an aerial photograph
Right.
of the property along with the application, and so when we go into closed session, we refer to those
Okay.
in the discussion.
Well, let's set aside that question then
Okay.
for now. We can talk about
Yeah,
it later
that
with the
might
form, with
be a
Barry, with
violation.
our attorneys, and we can decide what makes sense in that, whether we have separate materials that's provided to the board.
And Michelle's got a question, but I want to jump in and make sure that I say before that, one of the things that I do is visit these sites, because one of the criteria, actually the first one is, does it have mature trees and/or rare species on it? And, this woods is set back from the road a bit, so you can't do a drive-by and say, looks nice. So I actually had to hike back into the woods, and it's a really nice woods. It's not just, a second-growth scrub woods. I could see a property scoring 37 points that has scrub woods on it not being worth pursuing. This is not the case there.
I'm excited about that part of it, as Barry probably knows. So Michelle, did you have a question?
I actually have two. So my first, now I just want to go to a different question, because you stated that the Board of Trustees can know what you're discussing in.
Yes, absolutely.
So I have not been attending the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board because dominantly it's been in closed session. So I can be
Can we
involved
open
in this
the-
discussion.
That's a question I would ask council.
Can we open the closed session of the Farmland Board to members of the Board of Trustees?
I thought so, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because this could answer now my second question.
Yeah.
So I understand low scoring can be a high priority. I understand how scoring works and how important it is. And as you know, I am actually more in favor of preserving land that will benefit wildlife, habitats, and the health of groundwater. I've always been that person that would want to preserve inside so the habitat is safe and
Yeah.
actually has somewhere to live, right?
Yeah.
But I also understand that we do have potential individuals that have developable property on the hook too. So that's my question right there is, although I love the whole idea of this property, could that impede on you proposing these other properties for funding? Like they would have to wait potentially because you're going for this property instead? Because I'm concerned about the properties that could turn into large developments versus a property that I love that's a habitat, but I know more or less will stay a
And
habitat.
we want to save it all, don't we? Yes.
Good question.
Yeah, so for this property, all we're doing is getting an appraisal at this point. Doesn't mean, we may not go any further than that. I mean, we may present those numbers to the landowner and they say, not interested. We do have 5 properties that were submitted for the federal farmland grant program just a couple of weeks ago, and don't have any word on that yet. Will sometime relatively soon. And I think there's a good chance that we'll get federal grant awards for one or more of those properties. And so there will be, and, we have a good amount of funding available, but it's not unlimited. And so some choices may need to be made.
Sure.
We also may need to see if we're able to succeed in certain things like installment payments rather than paying all in a lump sum, like spreading out payments over 3 or 4 or 5 years. So we don't drain our resources, all at once. We may need to get creative about things depending on how these other grant applications succeed or not.
Okay.
Any other questions for Barry? Okay, then do I hear a motion to approve an expenditure of $2,850 to commission a development rights appraisal for FOSB application number 2023-1?
I'll move to allocate the funds for that appraisal.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you, Barry.
Yes, thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
We're trying to move along faster, so I'm sorry that we...
So fast, I mean, it's like 5 minutes from my house.
I know, I'm sorry that we got to your agenda item ahead of you. Okay, so now we're moving on to the approval of the community engagement calendar. And the summary sheet and the actual engagement calendar are reversed in the package. So the engagement calendar is actually page 29, and the summary is page 31 in your package. And this is really Lonnie Scott's initiative, and he wrote the summary. I placed this on the calendar as a motion because we've been one-offing all of these items, and I thought we should have a calendar, that goes through the end of our term, and that allows us to plan and know what we're committed to and set our calendars and not feel quite so reactive, I guess. And I also wanted the entire board to sort of look at everything that's proposed and say yes or no to it. The one thing I would note is the Memorial Day event parade on May 27th is different from every item on this calendar is something that we organize, we sponsor, and we execute. The Memorial Day is the one that we simply participate in somebody else's event.
Where is Debbie? Oh,
So let me start by calling for a motion to approve the community engagement calendar.
So moved.
Second?
And then let me open it up for discussion.
Okay, so I love the idea of being in the Dexter Days Parade
Okay.
once again. I think we had a blast last time, and it was very.
That wasn't Dexter Days?
No, I'm talking about last year.
Oh, last year.
Oh,
Michelle and I
Yeah.
spearheaded an effort to be in, and it was, we were utilizing it as promoting the land preservation, but I do think it's a very festive parade, and it's fun to be in there. And the Memorial Day Parade was great too, but the Dexter Days one, we can like do, bring animals and trains and things like that were fun. So I don't see it on here, and
Yep.
I was wondering, and I don't even know when it is exactly, but I was wondering if we might add it as a,
Okay. I mean, it's in August, I think, and we missed the deadline for this year, so,
oh,
but
have
think
we
it's
missed
always
it?
the-
for this year, yes, but that doesn't, but if we could add it for next year.
I don't know, we must have missed the deadline. Remember, we were like 3 days before, we were like.
I know, I called you and I'm like, hey, you want to do this? And
I know.
Can you get in the parade but not have a booth maybe?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably.
and it's probably a booth, I
had
think
to
it's a
pull a lot of
booth that
We
we
can
can.
get in the parade.
Yeah.
And they were fond of
Um,
open space.
When is it?
I think it's
It's
the
always
third week
yeah,
of
August.
August, right?
The third week, that weekend, the parade is probably.
Yeah, I think it's Friday, Saturday, just Friday and Saturday, right, Michelle?
So are you,
It
pro-
depends on if other
And
people
Sunday?
want to do it, though. I mean, I
think
don't
so.
want to be out there alone.
are you proposing that we add it for this year and next year?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll look at my calendar.
okay.
Dexter Days, August 11th and 12th.
Oh, so it's a second week?
It says Dexter Days. I didn't want to make sure it didn't conflict with movie night.
Yeah,
If you said August, and it says here it's August 11th and 12th.
No, movie night is on my birthday.
okay,
Supervisor, if I may,
yes.
can we add engagements to the calendar?
Sure.
is this a-
I mean, so the only thing I would caution you.
I'm just
I-
asking.
I would, yes, we can add whatever we want, but anybody that adds something to the calendar has to be responsible for organizing it, because I'm not going to organize it.
Right,
So,
and-
so have at it, ladies, but
But can we
just
say
do-
that
yeah.
can we be a, we'll see on this, on Dexter Days?
Yeah, I mean,
We have to commit right now
Yeah,
on
so-
the parade, because I'd like to talk to Michelle and other people.
Well, if we're going to do Dex, just keep in mind that then we would have events 2 weekends in a
Yeah, I
row in
know.
August.
Yeah.
And so I would prefer not to bring this to the board again.
Okay.
So I would prefer, if it were up to me, honestly, I wouldn't add anything for this year, but I might add it for next year. So we can think, because we got a lot going on
Well,
right
so
now.
maybe we can talk about whether it's important this year or not for a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Is it important this year, do you
Is
think?
it important to other people?
I would do
To do Dexter Days Parade?
Yeah. I mean,
What about you, Michelle?
I mean, it's fantastic, and I already in,
Are you already involved in it
I'm a volunteer with
with another group?
Rotary
Oh,
and
okay.
Oh,
Styrofoam.
Okay, so you're already
So I
making
do
a
have,
presence
I do
there.
have commitments with
Okay.
my volunteer side versus Dexter
That's
Township.
fine. Yeah,
I would come and march with you, I just don't want to organize it,
yeah.
I'm
But
out
it's
of
a
town.
lot of fun.
You're out of town.
I'm out of town on the 11th and 12th.
I am usually out of town in August on the weekends, that's when Brad's
I know,
out.
it is hard. Okay, so let's mix
You
it
can
for
always
this.
wear your Dexter Township shirt and come and engage with Styrofoam.
Okay, let's mix it, because for me, it's about bringing the animals and the train and everything, and there has to be enough people and kids, and I have to get volunteers for the
Yeah.
ponies, and so,
Seems late and rushed right now. I
Yeah,
feel
would you,
Okay.
would
How
you
about
like
putting
us,
it on
should
24?
we add it for 24?
yeah, let's put
Okay.
it for 24.
And do you?
Yeah.
It's
the bicentennial next year.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Oh, okay.
fantastic.
There you go.
Okay,
Thank
so,
you.
so we'll
You can
add,
ride in the train.
That's in June
Yeah.
next year.
oh, that's in June next year.
I think I may be wrong, in 21.
It's the weekend. it's a weekend.
Okay,
event.
so I'm going to add Dexter Days for 2024. I'm going to recommend, I guess, I mean, we'll make a motion, but I'm going to recommend that we add Dexter Days. Let's not add the bicentennial yet, because let's find out a little bit more. But if we're talking next year, we have a little more time
Well,
then.
that's also coming on an election.
Yeah, right, and we're going to have a millage and all that,
Bicentennial is
so.
August 12th. It
August
says
If
August
it were
12th
me,
through 17th is the bicentennial.
I would do the
celebration.
bicentennial over Dexter Days,
Yeah.
just because
Okay.
that is
Bicentennial.
really community
Oh, is it
engagement.
different?
And
It's August 12th next year, so we
Yeah,
can
it's
add the,
That's when we leave our legacy
Is
of
that a
being in Dexter
parade?
Township.
Is that a parade?
They are going to have a parade, right? Can I ask?
Dr. Cheryl Rowley.
Okay.
She's in charge.
I believe they are going to have a parade.
Yeah, and that's in
Yeah.
June. I didn't hear about August.
That's, the website says August. August 12th through 17th is what their website
so let's take a timeout on this.
For
Let's
Dexter Days?
Let's not amend,
Okay.
let's not amend this calendar right now. Why don't we explore the bicentennial and Dexter Days for next year? And so do we want to, we can approve this calendar for 2023. We can even approve the 2024 calendar, but on a tentative basis, and then revisit the 2024 calendar maybe at the January meeting. And before then, do a little bit of research into what other events are coming up. And at that time, we can also decide about Memorial Day. And that makes sense to me because Lonnie will be here then too. So can I suggest an amendment to the motion where we approve the 2023 calendar and we tentatively approve the 2024 calendar with with a commitment to coming back in January, at the January meeting to confirm the calendar?
Okay. Thank you. That sounds good.
Can I also ask just a question? This year, in 2023, we did not do a spring cleanup.
Yeah.
Do we want to do one in '24?
Probably.
Do we want to do a spring and a fall, or do we want to just stay with the fall?
I think just the fall, because that's my 2 cents, because I felt like it slacked off.
Yeah, it did. It did slack off. But not sure why it slacked off. Like, did it slack off because we didn't do enough promotion? I don't know. But the numbers definitely were down, and that's why I didn't push to have a spring one, because the numbers were down. And now we're already getting inquiries of when is the fall cleanup. So people are starting to, but I don't know if they really want a spring one yet or not.
Okay.
Maybe we should do a little survey in the newsletter.
Yeah, that could
Yeah.
be something also.
Yeah.
So when we revisit this in January,
Yeah.
what can be on the table is Memorial Day, a spring cleanup,
Yeah.
Dexter Days, and the bicentennial. And we can make decisions about those. Can somebody raise their hand to take charge of doing this prepping this? Or I'll assign it to Lonnie, prepping for
Same.
this January meeting. He's not here. This
He
is
raised
this
his
is the
hand.
price he pays. He's not here, and this is his agenda item, so I'll have him do that research. Okay. So do I hear an amendment to the motion, Maris? Or was it, who made the motion? I forgot who made the
Oh,
motion.
maybe I did. Did I?
Janice, who made the motion?
Karen Nolte.
Oh, right.
Okay, Karen, do I hear an amendment to this motion?
Sure, but am I amending? Am I just amending the
You're
Dexter
making-
Days to 24?
No,
No.
you're making it approval of the 2023 calendar and tentative approval of the 2024 calendar.
Okay, I'll make that amended motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
One thing 23 doesn't have is any of the coffee chats. I thought those were in.
Yes,
Now that I just-
we took those out
took
because
them
Lonnie wasn't available, so.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, now the next one is a request from me to approve employee benefits. And I want to apologize to the board because I made an error, basically, which is that in the case of, we've hired 2 new people. Matt Ditas has gone from part-time to full-time, and he's fulfilling the zoning enforcement officer responsibilities. Very excited to have Matt. I think he's just an awesome addition to the staff, and it'll be great to have two people there full-time. And then Sam Edwards, we all met at a couple weeks ago, and she's our new office manager, also just a wonderful new hire. But I thought that, and we made that offer to Sam, I think my first week on the job, and I thought that because it was budget neutral, that I didn't need to seek approval of the board before making the offer. But then I checked in with Alex and found out that in fact, because, so I checked our compensation ordinance that we approved in this, whenever as part of the budget cycle, and it was silent with respect to benefits. And that made me feel like, okay, we didn't make any decision about, the benefits are not codified, and I'm doing something that's budget neutral, and so it's okay for me just to go ahead and do it. And so I made the offer to Sam. And then when I made a similar offer to Matt, he said, I really think you need to get board approval for this. And I said, oh, no, I don't think so, and here's why. And he said, I really think you should ask Alex. And so I asked Alex, and she said, yes, you need board approval. And I said, oh, but I already offered these benefits to Sam. So I apologize to the board for that and to Sam. But I do think that the benefits that we're offering are reasonable. I mean, I am planning to come back to the board probably in August with a benefits policy, which is something, with a compensation policy that includes benefits. It's something the board has been asking for a couple of years, and I've done a little bit of preliminary research. And I think the offer that I made, based on the preliminary benchmark studying that I've done, is going to be reasonable. I also vetted what I did with Pat Cassidy, who's on the local roads committee, but he's an HR professional, and so he read through the offer that I made, and he said he offered help with it, help me prepare the compensation policy as well. So I'm kind of on that track, but meanwhile, I've already made this offer, and I'm coming kind of retroactive to ask for your approval. So, with that in mind, I mean, is there, and what I offered was basically 85% we would pay for 85% of the health premium as selected on the exchange, not to exceed 15% of compensation. And then for dependents, 50%, of which Matt, I think, has one, and, I mean, not a dependent, but he has a spouse, and Sam does not have any. So the maximum fiscal impact that's noted in the summary is just is 15% of the two salaries. But I actually think the actual cost is going to be less than that. So with that in mind, is there a motion to approve the benefits as offered?
Yeah, I will, I'll make a motion to approve employee benefits for new hires, but I will remove myself from this vote because I didn't think about it. Yes, but Matt is my family member and my deputy, so I will go ahead and remove myself from this vote as a conflict of interest.
So I think you should probably not make the motion.
So not make the motion, yes.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve these health and retirement benefits for the two new hires,
Okay.
As stated.
Okay.
Well, this wouldn't only apply to the two new hires, it applies to the future, correct?
No.
This is just for these two new hires?
Yes, because we'll do a
And then we'll do a
compensation
full package.
policy.
Just second to discuss it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll second,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
The compensation policy will, yeah, and then when the compensation policy is approved, we will have to talk about what, if any, impact that's going to have on our current hires. And I know that I'm going to not be in favor of taking anything away from them, I'll warn you now, so if I come with a compensation package that proposes lesser benefits than these, I'm going to be asking for a grandfather clause for our existing employees, but we'll talk about that later, because I don't know that I don't anticipate that that's what the reality is going to be, so I don't think we need to talk about that now. Any other questions or discussion points on that?
No, not for me.
I don't have any, I just, are we going to, so we're not going to hire another zoning ordinance officer?
No, he's serving. And with respect to that, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to I'm asking for permission to issue an RFP for planning services, and I'll talk a little bit more about zoning enforcement under that agenda item, but it's a good question. So any more discussion or questions about that? Okay, so then I'm going to take a vote. All those in favor of, can you repeat the motion, Laura? You put it so well.
Approving the healthcare and retirement benefits for the 2 new hires as stated, but
And authorizing the supervisors.
authorizing the
Extending
supervisors'
the
offers.
To execute the offers.
Yes. And authorizing the supervisor to execute the offers.
Okay. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And noting that Treasurer Metz did not vote because of a conflict of interest. So it's 4 in favor and 1 abstention. So that motion passes. Okay, next up, approve $30,000 for master planning services, which is basically just correcting a budget error. Thank you, Clerk Stamboulalis, for pointing out to me that there was 0 in that budget line. And the explanation is in here. Basically, we approved this master planning contract a couple years ago. The master plan is going to be coming before this board in July, assuming that it gets released by the Planning Commission as is expected to next week. And about half of that contract was executed in prior fiscal years, but the budget line was not moved forward to the current fiscal year. So I'm just, and I have not yet had time to do a quality check on our budget. So I do expect that I might be coming back to the board with more budget amendments in the future. But for now, we did get a bill, and so I just want to have a budget line to pay it from. So do I hear a motion to approve a budget of $30,000? Yeah. A motion to approve a budget amendment of $30,000 under legal and professional services to support the previously approved cost of the master plan consultant.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Karen, can I just suggest you jump to page 37 and jumped over page 35, which is your,
Skipped up.
The RFP plan, I was like, where is the RFP planning services? Okay. I thought that was coming up next. Yeah, and so I did skip, so we moved around the agenda, that's fine. David Rohr has given notice effective June 30th. I think we don't know where he's going, but it sounds like it's a great job that he's going to. And he's not here tonight. He's at a baseball game with his son, or watching his son play baseball. But I am grateful to David for the services that he's provided, and really sorry to see him go. It's a lot of staff turnover in a short time. I see, Marty Straub is here with us today. So Marty, I might call on you a little bit. This is asking for approval to issue an RFP. I'm actually going to amend that to ask for approval to issue an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. So Marty, Maris, and David and I had a pretty lively discussion today about the costs and benefits of having a staff planner versus using a consulting firm to provide planning services. And I think everybody knows that David is a staff planner, and that is great in terms of consistency, customer service. He's here every day. He's our only full-time employee. Our community is used to walking in at any time in our open hours and having him here to help them with their permit issues or any other questions that they have. So if we move to a consulting model, we are going to have less of that. We'll have less boots on the ground here in the office. So the downside is basically that, it's a loss of probably hours here in the office. It is also likely to be more expensive to go with a planning firm. On the other hand, so the pluses of the firm are, we do not have any promotional opportunities here. We don't have in-house expertise to train a person. We don't have capacity to hire a person. It's also a tax or an effort on really me, you know, so if I don't have to hire the person, train the person, supervise the person, and provide professional growth opportunities for the person, it's simply less work for me. We also talked about risk. So if we hire somebody if we advertise and hire somebody, and that person is not satisfactory in any way, they will have left a job to come here, and we'll have to figure out that they're not performing. We'll have to provide performance corrections and all of that. You know, I have a lot of experience hiring people. I'm fairly confident in my ability to judge. But if I make a mistake, the stakes are really high, because then we have somebody in the role who's not performing. Whereas if we go with a firm and we're not satisfied with the person they assign to us, then we can just request a replacement of staff. And so I think we left, I mean, and tell me, Marty and Maris, I want you to tell me right now. Marty is here, he's the chair of our planning department, and so I really valued his voice on this. I value Maris's voice because she's our trustee appointment to the Planning Commission. I think we left the breakfast all feeling like the planning firm was probably the better choice. Is that, Marty, would you be willing to come up and speak to the board for a minute on or Maris? Would either of you be willing to? Yeah.
Yeah, allow Marty. I mean, he's our chair. And
yeah.
Marty, you want to grab the microphone? It's on.
Oh, do I really need that?
He's got a good voice.
There we go.
It's here.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, first of all, I think you summarized it very well. There are some pros and cons. You just kind of need to feel your way through some of that. This is not a position that we expected to find ourselves in, although on one level, as the supervisor stated, what is a career path for somebody in that position in Dexter Township? So we should expect that from time to time, this will occur. How you decide to cover all of those functions, I think you laid out a pretty good thought process. Some of the issues that I think we also need to be mindful of from what I experienced of David's work, some on Planning Commission, but even more so maybe on Zoning Board of Appeals, is the way that he worked with just the person who is going to deal with the township one time because they need to replace the porch on their lake property or something like that. Something where as the properties evolved, as the ordinances have evolved, there are still some issues that if a person is going to deal with this one time, they've got to go through a checklist of how do I properly submit that application. And I think David was great working with the public like that and helping them through what can be, kind of a daunting task. Professionals will figure it out on their own, but, to me, there can be a big gap, and I don't know how amongst those options available might we best satisfy that. So if there's a person at the township that can help fill out those forms, help guide people through what, can be kind of maze-like to them, and then also have the ability to call on, higher level, more complicated, advice on higher level, more complicated issues when we get a development before us. That might be a good a good way to do it. Or, as you feel your way through the process, that might be a good way to figure out what the next step is. It doesn't need to be the permanent solution. But anyhow, yeah, those are the kinds of things that we talked about. And I think there are some pros and cons, and maybe some creative ways that you want to investigate or pursue. But there will be an immediate need that needs to be filled, and then once you fill that, I think you probably have some time to figure out what you want the permanent solution to be.
Yeah.
But anyhow, my thoughts, I don't think any of that was profound. It was essentially what you said.
Yeah. Yes, so, and I will say that we have OHM is our engineering firm, and they are, I met with them today, they are going to fill in, they filled in on a temporary basis for 6 months when there was a vacancy in the past, and they have the capacity to do, I think, zoning enforcement as well as planning. And so they're going to get a not-to-exceed proposal to me, which is, I asked them to cap it at $5,000 a month, which we already had. I'm not coming to ask for approval for that because I don't have that proposal in front of me, and I think that we already have the budget for OHM. So it's only if we're going to exceed the OHM budget that I'll have to come back, and that may not even happen, But we have a plan in place for what's going to happen OHM is going to be in the office next week performing planning services. In the meantime, Matt, the deputy treasurer, now working full-time, is going to David has trained him actually to help service some of the minor permits. And so he'll be there all day, every day, just as David was, and he has fantastic customer service skills. He's a little uncomfortable with the enforcement part of the zoning enforcement role. But I have spoken with a couple of planning firms. They don't want to be our zoning enforcement officer, but they can provide, for that little percent of zoning enforcement that is where you actually have to issue a citation or it leads to legal proceedings. The planning firms can provide support for that, and they can also provide training and assistance to Matt if he's interested in learning that role. And so I thought that creates a professional development opportunity for somebody on our staff, and I'm looking for opportunities to create those learning opportunities for the staff. So, so for all those reasons, I kind of left today feeling like I greatly appreciated the conversation because I think it deepened my understanding of the cost and benefits, but I still want to, I think, proceed with looking for a contracted planner. So, Maris, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that we should go ahead, we have OHM, and like you said, Matt's going to fill in for that customer service, but we should go ahead with a firm, and then, also if we want to, while we're working with whatever party we choose, also maybe be looking outside for a staff if we think that this isn't working out, but having our feelers out there, looking for a full-time staff director, if that's the route we want to go. But I think that we should probably just jump right in and get something going and just see how it works out, but also thinking about our other options while we do that. And I think that's basically what Marty was saying too.
Am I correct in understanding that once we contract with somebody, they will have office hours here?
Yes.
Yes.
So we could
And they will-
publicize when people need to come and walk through, like we can set appointments.
Do you
For
know
some
the office hours?
Well,
We don't have one yet.
we don't, OHM is going to be here 9 to 3, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. But in terms of what the office hours will be for the new planning contractor, David had initially suggested that I do a request for qualifications, and I was like, no, I want to just do a request for proposal. The distinction is a request for proposal is where the bidder tells you what their scope of service is going to be and what the cost is going to be. Request for qualifications, they tell you what their qualifications are, what their experience is in the role, and they tell you what their hourly rate is, but they don't tell you their level of their preferred level of service. And I talked to David. I was hesitant to go with the RFQ, but then I actually talked to a couple of the planning firms, and they all said, yes, they all recommended that we do the RFQ, select the firm based on their qualifications and their hourly rate, and then we can decide the number of hours that we want to do collaboratively. And I'm proposing, as you guys saw in here, that I'm hoping Maris, Marty, and I can be on the selection committee, and then we'll come back to you in August and say, this is the firm we want to go with, and that we will then, after that, we'll negotiate with that firm what hours we want them to come. Do we want to do, we can even tell them that we prefer a Dexter Township resident to be assigned to us and things like that. I mean, we can shape the RFQ however we want. And then we'll come back to you guys with approval, to ask you for approval of the firm, and then when you've approved the firm, we'll negotiate the level of service.
Okay.
Any questions?
So you're not even planning on seeking anyone to fill his spot? You're just...
Oh, a full-time person?
Absolutely. I mean, as a person on this board, I think it is very important to have a person that the community is familiar with, that knows is going to be here. It seems like the community definitely wants that person to be here. Before I was a Board of Trustee, I would come in here, and if we had questions or wanted to put a barn up, or when we were seeking to alter our property for our business, I mean, it was really important for me too. So
I mean, it will be a person. Chris is a contractor, Kim is a contractor. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a person that we know. It's just that person will not be an employee of Dexter Township.
Exactly.
They'll be an employee.
Which I think is important too, to have a staff person that's an employee of Dexter Township. And I did understand your thoughts and concerns with new people potentially making a mistake. I know Zach Michelle's was new, as well as David Ward was new. But could we bring in a consultant and then hire a full-time Dexter Township employee where they could work with them?
Well, we could bring in a planning firm and then assess it, say, how's this working?
That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because, the only thing that concerns me is if you're even saying 5,000 for 3 days, that could turn into possibly 7,000 if it was 7 or 5 days or what have you, and then not have that person that, is a staff employee. I think that's important.
The difference is, the only difference that I see is, right now, we cut David's paycheck to David. If we have a consulting firm, we'll still cut a paycheck, but it will be to a corporate, and then they pay the individual. There'll still be a body in David's desk for designated hours.
And it'll be a predictable.
But not full-time, and we can set up lines of...
It could be full-time.
It could be full-time.
But if it's full-time, it probably won't be full-time, but it could be 4 days a week. But it would be more expensive.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
It's definitely something...
So there'll be
to
a
look at.
cost impact to it.
And I still am going to ask around about, because you brought up an important question about how difficult is it to find a planner in this area. I think we'd have better luck finding these services through a corporation or through a firm than we would finding an individual like David was.
It's definitely a stopgap for the next few
But,
months.
I could be wrong, and like I said, I'm going to try to have some conversations about that.
Well, and there are very few firms that provide these services. Beckman Rader does a little bit of it. They're our master plan consultant. Carlisle Wortman, I believe they do about 80% of the townships in Washtenaw County, so they're very known for that. McKenna is a firm that we always had. Dexter Township had a contractor until we hired David, I believe. I think Zach Michelle's was not an employee of Dexter
Correct.
Township. So McKenna will be one. And there's a fourth one, and I'm...
Zach wasn't employed.
What?
I believe Zach wasn't employed.
Anyway, I mean, Dexter Township has had contract planners before, and they've had staff planners before, but so we'll be going to McKenna, Beckett and Rader, Carlisle Wortman, and I think one or two others. And then we can come back and revisit Michelle. But I have to say that I feel like don't necessarily have the capacity to select and train and supervise a new planner, because I'm too new, you know?
I don't have that capacity.
Yeah,
I will say that right now, and I could not.
yeah.
Oh, I understand that, but there are consultants that could train. That's all I was referring to.
And just to be clear, at this point especially, it's not my business to advocate for one direction or another. You know, the board will figure that out, but, you know, try to help think through some of the functions that need to be covered, the gaps that we want to make sure we minimize, help you out in that aspect at least.
I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot like this.
I just want to know, Janice, to get live stream going, because are we broadcasting bald spot all this time? Yeah. I could have done it from that chair back there, it would have all been the same.
Is our live stream working?
No.
It's not?
Yeah, well, she just had audio, she didn't have video.
Motion on this already? I don't know.
Oh.
Did we?
There is audio though. Okay.
Janice, is there a motion, has a motion already been made on this, or do I need to call?
On the RFP or the
Yes.
RFQ?
On either of those?
There has not been a motion.
Yeah, okay. So can I ask for a motion to approve the issuance of a request for qualifications for planning services?
So moved.
And is there a second? Okay. So I'm going to take a voice vote.
Who seconded it?
Laura Sanders,
Yes.
Maris Metz.
Yes.
Michelle Stambolelli.
Yes.
Karen Nolte.
Yes.
Myself, Karen Sickinga, yes. Okay. So now, I just want to talk a little bit about the package. Now we're moving into reports. And I wasn't necessarily going to talk through the reports. I'm kind of relying on you guys to read the reports and then come back to me with any questions that you have. But I did want to talk a little bit about what's coming up next in terms of, what's queued up next for our meetings this summer. So we have a strategic planning session scheduled for July 11th. That's going to be a couple hours. That's revisiting our strategic plan and confirming our priorities. I do plan to invite the staff to attend that. This time we did not have staff specifically invited. I mean, staff were welcome the last time, but they weren't specifically invited. I think it's pretty typical to include staff in a strategic planning process. And I'm queued up to have a conversation with Lonnie about the agenda, talked with Karen a little bit about the agenda as well. But I do hope by then to have a better handle on the budget. So, for me, budget and strategic planning are go hand in hand. So that's queued up for July. The July Board of Trustees meeting, I will not be present at that meeting. I'm going to be on vacation. There is looking like there's only going to be one action item, and that action item is going to be a request to release the master plan for public review. We'll have the consent calendar. It's not Board of Trustees approval of the master plan. It's approval of releasing the master plan for public review. That is predicated on the assumption that the Planning Commission itself is going to release the master plan to the board at its meeting next week. When that happens, which I think it probably will happen because there's already been a review process, this will be the second hearing by the Planning Commission, I will be pushing the master plan out to you the next day with a little, cover email on it that sort of explains it and talks a little bit about what's coming up at the July meeting. So the master plan is going to come to you as soon as it's released for your review in advance of the next board package. Then the board pack, so I'm going to try to get the board package out to you July 12th or something. I leave on July 13th. And then Becken and Rader, Marty, Maris are all going to be here presenting at the July meeting, talking about the master plan. They're going to talk about the community engagement elements of it. They're going to be talking about the major themes in the master plan, and then the purview of the board and what the process looks like. And just a reminder to everybody, I did recommend that all of you enroll in the citizen planner training. I thought it was excellent. Maris echoed my endorsement of it. It's cost $35, and if all you can do is the introductory sessions, I think that'll really help you get oriented. But if you don't have time for that, Beckon and Rader is going to be here kind of walking you through that process. Bodman also has done this many, many times, and so they are here to answer any questions that you have about our purview as a board and what the process is going to look like.
Sounds like it'll be very supportive.
And then in August, the plan is there's going to be more of a focus on finance because we've got to approve the millage. We'll want to talk about the fire and police millage that is expiring in November. We'll have the compensation policy. I wanted to put those together on a single agenda because staff is a big driver of costs, and so when we're talking revenue, we should also have in mind our costs. And that's kind of as far as I've gotten, but I do plan for us to approve some bylaws. I want us to, at some point, whether possibly in September, I want us to pay attention to our own board processes and approve bylaws of our own, maybe empower the supervisor to some independent action and things like that. So I'm not totally clear in my mind what's coming up in September, but that's kind of the basic idea. We are going to have a budget calendar that's I'm going to be looking at the Charter Township mandated budget calendar, and I'm probably going to try to imitate that, which is going to mean initial budget hearings probably in December. So that's just looking ahead. And otherwise, are there any questions on any of the report outs or any discussion?
You made writing in the loop extremely easy.
Oh.
Cut and paste, cut and paste.
Any comments on the new format of the agenda?
I like it.
Love it.
Anything that could have been clearer, more useful?
I'm blown away that we've almost completed our meeting with all of this stuff, and it's only 7:30.
Yeah.
Blow it up, Karen.
Any other concerns
Thank you.
by the board? Well, actually, let's do the. Well, let me say one more thing, which is prior to the attachments, so please do read like the Multi-Lakes report, the planning report, and the fire board report, because I did ask them in particular because those are things that may lead to future decisions by our board, things with fiscal impact. So for example, the fire board is currently negotiating wages and staffing levels, and that's going to have budgetary impact. It's going to impact the level of the millage. So I want you guys to feel oriented to our future decisions, and I'm trying to include information now so that when those decisions arise, you'll feel like, oh yeah, I know something about this. I read that report a couple months ago. I'm oriented to this, and ask questions. And then you can either ask them here at the meeting, or you're welcome to contact me. Of course, everyone knows you're welcome to contact me with any questions that you have, and suggestions about the agenda format are most welcome. So with that, then,
I do want to. I kind of want to comment to the strategic plan, also the update that. By next week, I should have that cash flow analysis all ready to go, and then
Great.
starting to invest. And this is actually a really good time that we are revisiting the strategic plan, because if there's any more major expenses, I'd like to discuss that at this next meeting. So that way there I can get a really good guide from you guys as how much money you want me to see because this is going to be more of our longer term investments. So I need to be a little bit more careful with these. They're not liquid funds, not something I can just pull in and out without penalties. So, this is a little bit different. So it's going to be nice for me to get a gauge from you guys about where you think that we're going to be at, any bigger expenses or projects that we see coming up. So.
Great. And Michelle, I know you are monitoring Prop 2 and the changes that
Yep,
are right. Did you want to
yeah.
say something about that now, or do you want to wait? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, no worries. I did write down a little bit. So our lobbyists, the State of Michigan Bureau of Elections in Washtenaw County, are working hard to come to a consensus with the proposal 2 laws. And I plan to give a detailed report of the upcoming 2022 election during our, excuse me, 2024.
I was going to say, going back.
During our August meeting. But so I've learned a whole lot. There are changes all the way around with how the elections are going to run and be performed. But I just wanted to elaborate on 4 things. What I do know so far, which is set in stone, is the presidential primary of 2024 will begin in the month of February. So it has been moved up, and that is concrete. The return absentee voter envelope postage will be paid by the state of Michigan, which is fantastic. Early day 9-day voting will begin Saturday and run through the following Sunday. And those will be 9 full 8-hour days before the election. And along with the 9-day early voting, we will need to have poll workers hired and staffed. And with that, with the implementation of Proposal 2, there are significant changes that will be made to elections, which will lead to extensive training for clerks and those working elections. I'll bring you more accurate information in August. The laws are changing every day. They are attempting to come to a consensus. They're working really hard. The Prop 2 is just a huge bill, and there'll be a whole lot of changes.
Good. So with that, I'm gonna do the second call for public comment on non-agenda items, and then I'll ask the board if you have any more comments or concerns.
I really liked the layout. It was very informative. It was wonderful.
Lois, we need you at a microphone.
You're not booming. Never get there.
Thank you.
I'm not buried.
Of other people. Is it on? Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to compliment the board and our supervisor on the layout today. It was wonderful to have all the agenda and then the items to support it. All I see is too much paper, and I think we have to, as people who come to the meeting, we probably ought to be stimulated as the public to bring some of that stuff with us so that we're not using everybody's paper. And I wanted to clarify the bicentennial. I heartily suggest contacting Cheryl Willoughby, who's the chairperson. There is going to be a big deal in June, and I may have my dates a little bit wrong, June 21, 22, whatever. And they may also be doing Dexter Days, or they may tone that down. But for all purposes, you want to be part of the big deal and the bicentennial. Interestingly enough, Ann Arbor is also celebrating its bicentennial, and there will be a joint 5K run, whatever they do with those things. I'm not into that. So just to clarify, we could be doing one thing or 2 things when we think about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Marty, Alicia? No? Okay. Okay, so now, last item on the agenda, any other issues, comments, or concerns by board members or staff? Janice, I'll start with you.
No.
None?
Well organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen?
No,
Anything?
nothing for me, but thank you. Very well organized, very informative. The packet was great.
Michelle?
Well done. No.
I'm good. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much, but I have one question, but I don't have my calendar. When are we reviewing the strategic plan? July 11th.
It'll be, well, yes, strategic plan, July 11th.
And that's at 6 o'clock, right? 'Cause
Yep.
Okay, because you can see I can barely get in here because of my
6 to
last
8.
client.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 to 8 on July 11th.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be here.
No, I will be here for that. I won't be here for the master plan discussion at the full board meeting.
So that one is on the 11th, the strategic plan one. Okay. I know I have.
And I really hope that that will be the last special meeting for a
Yeah.
long time.
That would be
I mean, I don't want us to have a lot of special, I don't want us to be called upon to do a lot of special
I
meetings.
know, it's really a
Yeah,
lot.
but there was just a lot happening, so. Alex, Sinead?
Can I ask one? If you do have things, like I went through. when I was-
And thank you, Karen.
You're
I mean,
welcome. I
have
was
to-
going through to get ready for the strategic review, I went through all our old minutes and picked up leftover items. If you have other ones that you know of, just let me know and I'll change the master so we can be updated when we go to.
And I really have to thank you. I mean, Karen really spent quite a long time auditing our strategic plan to see what the status was. And so I really want to thank you for that. And really everyone, I mean, Janice helped me with the agenda. Michelle had to do the resolutions and provide the financial, Maris provided financial reports. Laura, Fosby information, Alex, everyone here really, and everyone who's not here also provides significant assistance with this, so thank you. Everyone has just been awesome in helping me get acclimated and get up to speed. Thank you guys, really.
Thank
You've
you.
been so helpful, yeah. Thank you. And with that, I don't really think we need to do a motion to adjourn, do we? I think we can. Oh, I do.
I'll
Okay,
make that
so-
motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all those in favor?
Do we want to open it to public again? Regina just came in, I don't know.
Oh,
Hi, Regina. Do you want to say something before we close the meeting? Sure, come on.
Thank you. I was supposed to be here. So, everyone here?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you need to
And you
get
might
the
need to
mic.
speak into the mic, yeah.
Thank you. Over here. Is that good? I'm Regina Hamlet. I was one of the applicants for the trustee. I actually have no idea who got it because my live feed cut out while I was driving here. So I was trying to see, but it cut back into when there was a gentleman up here for the farm preservation land. So that's where I came in at. So I'm sure it wasn't me, but I'm curious who won or who got the appointment. Are you guys, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Do you, are we allowed to know?
Oh, a question, I mean, it's not really a question and answer period, but it was Gretchen Driscoll was the person that we selected. Mhm.
Is she here?
Yeah.
I've never met her. She's on vacation.
Yeah, she's on vacation. But we really are hoping that you, I mean, Lois is already on several committees, but we were really hoping that you and Jeffrey will.
Oh, that's why I came. I was like, I'm coming because
we have vacancies on
Yes.
a number of boards, and so we need more volunteers. So
Right.
if you want to get in touch with
I
me, then just email me tomorrow.
I've
And I
emailed
want to
a couple
know.
times, but there's been changes in staff and stuff, so I
Yeah.
wasn't sure who to talk to about it. But
Yeah,
definitely, like I already kind of volunteered for the WAVE committee or board. I don't know if it's committee or a board.
Yeah.
That'd be
Oh.
great. I don't mind
Yeah.
helping with that. And then anything else, I love community engagement stuff, so.
Yeah,
that
so,
would be great to-
just email me tomorrow,
Okay.
because we're saying,
We'll do
it really came down to, first it was who's already volunteering
Yep.
and actively engaged, and so
Sure.
and we said, we would love for Regina and Jeffrey to be on that list, and so maybe
Yeah.
you'll run for trustee in
Sure.
Earache
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
No, I do want to get involved, and that's why
Yeah.
I made sure I got here tonight, even though it took forever to get here, traffic and all that.
Well, I want to hear about
Yeah.
your what happened. I'm not going to violate your confidentiality, but
Right, thank you.
I've been
I
thinking
appreciate
about
it.
you, yes.
I did join on the chat real quick. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure who
Yeah.
was able to see it, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for letting me come up, and I appreciate it, asking me to come up, but I watched the whole thing. So I had one question. I'm really sad about David, because I really like him, but.
Yeah.
I
think that was
My own
impressive.
opinion is I do prefer like a person who's here consistently. It's
Yeah,
been really
this
nice
is not
over
the
years.
time, we're not here to
Yes,
comment
I understand.
about
Okay.
agenda items. We want to get away
No
from
problem.
evaluative statements about
Okay.
the decisions we already
Sure.
made.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay.
thank you so much.
okay,
Thank you very much, Regina.
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor to adjourn, and we were about to take a vote, so let's just go right to the voice vote on that. So all those in favor of adjournment? Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Then we're adjourned.
Great. 7:45. I thought it was going to be a long meeting with so many.
You did it. I thought Matt the other day.
Okay.
Be there until like 11 o'clock.
Are you taking bets on it?
That's so important to me. You can ask me. I know who's voted, I know the motion, I know everything. I really just want to be the clerk. It's okay. I said I don't want to say that.
You were totally right.
Just going forward, I just, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. I don't know what, because I'm
Be there.
no worries. But it became a custom process, which I understand.